Jimmy Fallon's unexpected question leaves Jungkook blushing on live TV. What he says next reveals more than anyone expected. Jungkook, what would you name your future child? The studio lights flared. The crowd fell into a hush of anticipation. And the smile on Jimmy Fallon's face was half mischief, half genuine curiosity. Jungkook blinked. Just once. But the moment stretched like elastic, taut with silent tension. He wasn't expecting that question. Not now. Not live. Laughter cracked in the background. But Jungkook's fingers twitched subtly on the armrest. His eyes flicked to Jimmy's, and for a heartbeat, something unreadable passed through them. Ooh. He began clearing his throat. His voice cracked softly, and the microphone caught it like a confession. The audience giggled. Jimmy leaned in, eyebrows raised, waiting, and Jungkook blushed. Not the polite, rehearsed blush of a celebrity caught off guard, but a genuine runaway warmth that spread from the base of his neck to the tips of his ears. He glanced downward, his long lashes casting crescent shadows on his cheeks. That's a hard question, he muttered, trying not to smile. But maybe, Ara. Jimmy repeated, eyes lighting up. Why Ara? The crowd leaned in closer. Every camera zoomed in. Jungkook looked out toward the audience, then back at Jimmy. His gaze suddenly wasn't shy, it was soft. It means beautiful in Korean, and it was my grandmother's name. She raised me for a while before everything got crazy. There was a pause. Real, emotional. The studio no longer felt like a stage. It felt like a secret being cracked open under a spotlight. Backstage, minutes earlier, Jungkook had been quiet. The kind of quiet that spoke volumes. His stylist had fixed his collar 3 times, each time brushing over a scar just behind his ear. No one asked about it. No one ever did. Don't let Jimmy bait you today, Namjoon had warned in the green room. He's going to go off script. Jungkook hadn't responded. He was staring at a photo on his phone. An old snapshot of a smiling woman holding a tiny, gap-toothed boy with wide eyes and scraped knees. Ara. He hadn't thought about her in years. Not like this. Back to the stage. Jimmy leaned forward with that glimmer of knowing showmanship. So if you had a girl, she'd be Ara. And if it was a boy? Jungkook chuckled softly, brushing hair from his eyes. I think I'd call him Haru. Haru? That means day or spring. Wow. Jimmy nodded, sincere this time. That's kind of poetic. It's because my days were dark for a while, Jungkook said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. And I want him to remind me that even one new day can change everything. The crowd didn't cheer. They stayed silent, moved. Jimmy didn't joke. Not this time. But someone else watched. A figure in the second row, arms folded, wearing a lanyard with press credentials but no camera, no notepad. Just eyes. Cold and calculating. He mouthed the word quietly, Ara, then walked out of the studio before the commercial break even hit. Later that night, in the van, Jungkook stared out the tinted window as Manhattan's neon lights smeared across the glass. You did good, said his manager from the front seat. Really good. But Jungkook didn't answer. His fingers gripped his phone tighter. On the screen was a new email from an unknown sender. No subject. Just one word in the body. Haru? His chest tightened. He hadn't told anyone about that name. Not even the members. And certainly not Jimmy. Not really. Not completely. Because Haru wasn't just a name. It was a secret. And someone else remembered it. The studio exit door slammed shut behind the mysterious man, swallowed by the din of New York's restless night. But his absence left a phantom in the air. One that clung to Jungkook like an invisible shadow. Back in the van, the silence grew thick. Jungkook stared at the single word on his phone. Haru? A faint vibration trembled in his fingers. Another message popped up. Still hiding from the past? He almost dropped the phone. His breath stilled. Goosebumps prickled up his arms. It wasn't just the name. It was him. The man Jungkook hadn't seen in years. The man who used to. Jungkook. His manager called from the front. You want to go straight to the hotel or swing by the studio? Jungkook's lips moved before he thought. Take me to the river. The river. His manager turned around, confused. Hyung. It's freezing outside. Just, please. His voice was steady, but there was something behind it. Something even the manager didn't dare challenge. He nodded. The riverbank was quiet, save for the rustling of wind dragging along the fence and the occasional honk from the bridge above. Jungkook stepped out into the cold, his coat flapping against him as he walked toward the railing. The same spot, same bench, same street lamp flickering like it had insomnia. He sat down slowly. The wooden slats groaned under his weight. Once upon a time, this was where he came when the noise got too loud. When the trainee days bled into sleepless nights. When the fans hadn't found him yet. When he could be alone and still feel whole. Now he was alone. But he felt like he was missing. His phone buzzed again. You still don't get it, do you? And attached an old photo. Jungkook's face paled. It was him again. A boy with shaggy bangs, standing next to Jungkook at that exact bench 15 years ago. In the picture, they were grinning. Arms around each other, scraped knees, frozen popsicles clutched in sticky hands. You said we'd name him Haru together. Jungkook stood up so fast the bench screeched against the concrete. He clutched the phone like it might scream. But then, like the sky had a sense of humor, his ringtone blasted from the phone. A high-pitched clip of Jimin yelling, YHHH. Answer your phone, you emo loser. Jungkook groaned, answering with a scowl. What now? Bro. Jimin whispered like he was hiding under a table. What the hell was that on Fallon? Jungkook rolled his eyes, pacing. What do you mean? You blushed, like full cherry tomato, over a baby name. The memes are already flooding Twitter. You're trending in 10 countries. And someone made a fan art of Era with tiny bunny ears and angel wings. Please stop. I can't. You're too cute. My ovaries exploded. And I don't even have ovaries. Despite the tension burning in his chest, Jungkook laughed. A short, surprised chuckle. Okay. Seriously, Jimin added more gently. You good? Jungkook hesitated. The wind ruffled his hair. Not really. Pause. I'm coming over. What? No. I'm already halfway there. Don't make this weird. Jungkook hung up with a sigh, but his heart softened slightly. He pocketed the phone and turned back toward the city. Behind him, under the half-dead streetlight, someone stood watching. A silhouette. A man with a familiar slouch and worn-down sneakers. Then, as if sensing Jungkook's stare, he vanished into the shadows. 30 minutes later, Jimin kicked open the door to Jungkook's apartment, arms full of convenience store snacks. I brought emotional support junk food, he declared. Jungkook blinked. Did you buy all of 7-Eleven? Only the important stuff. Jimin held up a bottle of banana milk like it was holy water. Now talk. What's wrong? Jungkook stared at him for a moment. Then, without a word, tossed his phone onto the couch. The open messages glowed on the screen. Jimin picked it up and read. His smirk faded. His shoulders stiffened. Who the hell is this? Jungkook leaned back, eyes heavy. His name's Hyun. We were close. Childhood close. Jimin looked at him, waiting. I told him once that if we ever had kids, like jokingly, I'd name mine Haru and he'd name his Era. Jungkook exhaled. It was stupid. We were 13. We made up scenarios, drew comics, talked about how we'd grow up together. Wait. Jimin held up a hand. Are you saying you named a child in your mind with a guy you've never mentioned before, and now he's texting you like it's real? Jungkook nodded slowly. That's either really romantic or borderline unhinged. Depends on context. I think he's mad I forgot. Forgot what? Jungkook turned toward the window. That I loved him. The air went still. Jimin blinked. Oh, yeah. And you never told anyone? No. Why now? Jungkook swallowed. Because he never said goodbye. And now he's back. watching. Jimin chewed his lip, then sighed. Alright, I'm not gonna pretend I get it all, but we're gonna figure this out. He tossed a rice cracker at Jungkook's face. Step 1, you're sleeping. You look like a haunted art student. Jungkook caught the cracker midair. Thanks. Jimin grinned. You're welcome. Now go wash up. I'll keep watch. If any long-lost ex-lovers try to break in, I'll scream mic drop at them until they cry. Jungkook laughed again, this time longer, deeper. But behind the humor, behind the warmth, he felt it. The past wasn't done with him yet. And haru was just the beginning. It was 2:41 a.m. when Jungkook jolted awake to the sound of his doorbell buzzing like a dying hornet. 3 short rings. A pause. Then one long one. His heart stopped. That pattern. It was their secret knock. The one they made up on the playground when they were 9 and convinced the world was full of spies and magic trees. Jungkook sat up in bed, his breath fogging the cold air. He glanced at his phone. No new messages. No missed calls. He slipped out of bed, heart pounding, and crept toward the door, careful not to wake Jimin, who was passed out face first on the couch under a pile of banana milk cartons and a hot pack taped to his forehead. The doorbell buzzed again. 3 short, 1 long. Jungkook reached the door, staring through the peephole. Nobody. Only the empty hallway, lit dimly with flickering fluorescent light. He opened the door anyway. Nothing. But then, taped to the floor, exactly in front of the threshold, was a piece of notebook paper folded into a square, sealed with a red paperclip. His breath caught. He bent down, picked it up, and closed the door silently behind him. Back inside, under the kitchen light, he unfolded it. A single sentence. Do you remember what you promised me by the river? Jungkook's knees buckled, and he dropped into a chair. Yes, he remembered. He was 14. Hyun had just told him his parents were moving to the States. Jungkook had cried like a child, even though he pretended he was too old for it. And on that very same bench near the river, they swore they'd find each other again. Swore they'd never forget the name Haru. Never stop writing songs together. Never let the world change them. He'd forgotten anyway, and now someone was reminding him. The next morning, Jimin woke up groaning. Why is my head ringing like I got into a fight with a bell tower? You probably ate 3 expired chocopies, Jungkook said flatly, tossing him a water bottle. Jimin sat up. Rude, but accurate. Then his eyes fell on the paper lying open on the kitchen counter. Is that? Jungkook nodded. He was here last night. Jimin's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Like here? In the hallway? Yup. You opened the door? Yup. Do you have any survival instincts? Jungkook gave him a deadpan stare. I'm literally trained in Krav Maga. That's not the point, Jungkook. Jimin jumped off the couch, flailing. You're the most famous man in South Korea, and you're opening random doors at 3 a.m. for your possibly unhinged childhood soulmate? What if he was holding a duck? What if the duck had a bomb? Why would the duck? Don't question the duck. Jungkook broke into a laugh he couldn't hold back. His stomach hurt from it. He hadn't laughed this hard in weeks. Jimin softened. Look, if this guy's back and he wants something, you gotta talk to him. Face to face. I know. Not in secret notes. Not in Morse code. Not through creepy knock-knock jokes in the middle of the night. Be an adult. I am an adult. Jimin raised an eyebrow. You literally cried over a sock in a laundry commercial last week. It was a really sad sock. Later that day, at the Big Hit studio, Jungkook found himself walking down the hallway toward the recording booths, trying to act normal. But his fingers were twitching again. He hadn't told anyone. Not Namjoon, not the staff, not the fans. But something in him had cracked open. Every lyric he tried to write today came back to the same 2 syllables. Ha-ru. He was still staring at his notepad, lost in the rhythm of a melody he hadn't finished. When the studio door creaked open, he looked up, and there he was, Hyun. Taller than Jungkook remembered. Still wiry. Still with those same moon-shaped eyes, but sharper now. A little sunken. A little haunted. Jungkook's breath hitched. Hyun. Hey Kookie. The name hit like a punch to the gut. Nobody called him that anymore. Not like that. Not with that voice. What are you doing here? Jungkook whispered. Your team doesn't recognize me. I applied as a lyricist. They saw my samples. I got through security. Easy. Jungkook stood frozen. Why now? Hyun stepped into the studio, closing the door behind him. Because you said something on Fallon last night that was meant for me. Jungkook blinked. I didn't. Era and Haru. Hyun's voice was sharper now. You still remember. You lied when you said you didn't. I didn't lie. You erased me, Jungkook. The words cracked like thunder. You became famous. You lived the dream we planned. I waited. I watched. I thought you'd say something, anything. For 10 years. You had my email, my socials. And then I see you on TV, blushing over our old names like they're just cute fan service. Jungkook's throat was dry. I didn't mean it like that. Then why? Jungkook stepped forward. Because I was afraid. I was afraid if I reached out, you'd hate me. Or worse, you'd already moved on and I'd just be the guy who made dumb promises by a river. Hyun's shoulders shook. I waited for you. Silence. Then Jungkook, in a trembling voice. I never forgot. I just didn't think I deserved to remember. Hyun looked at him, eyes softening. You wrote Still With You. Jungkook looked up, startled. That was about me, wasn't it? He didn't deny it. Hyun exhaled shakily. So what now? Jungkook took a breath. You're in the studio now. You wanted to write with me. So let's write. Hyun's lips twitched. A song. Jungkook smiled gently. Not just a song. And as they sat across from each other, for the first time in over a decade, two pens hit paper. Two voices hummed a forgotten melody. And somewhere in the bridge of the song, the line finally formed. Even if the name fades, I'll call it home again. You're flat again, Hyun muttered, squinting at the sheet music like it had insulted his ancestors. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. No, I'm not. Hyun rolled his eyes. You were. I was breathing. Well, maybe breathe in key next time. Jungkook narrowed his eyes. Oh, so you've gone full diva now? Hyun leaned back in his chair, arms folded. I've always been a diva. You just forgot. Jungkook glared at him across the mixing desk. You know what else I forgot? How insufferable you are when you think you're right. Which is, always. You're the reason God created autotune. You're the reason God gave me migraines. I'm gonna choke you with a mic cable. I dare you. The room went silent. Then both of them burst out laughing. The kind that cracked open ribs and echoed against the soundproof walls. They hadn't laughed like that in years. And it hurt, in the best way. Outside the booth, Jimin sat on the studio couch with a jumbo bag of popcorn and the expression of a reality TV addict who just found his new favorite drama. He shoved a handful into his mouth and muttered, This is better than any K-drama I've ever watched. You two need your own show. When enemies write love songs or something. Hyun poked his head out from the booth. Is he always this loud? Louder, Jungkook called back. This is him on mute. Jimin gave them both a middle finger. I supported you through your emo night, you ungrateful gremlins. Jungkook walked out with his lyric notebook, flopping next to Jimin on the couch. He's bossy. I forgot how bossy he is. You're both bossy. It's like watching two cats slap each other. Hyun came out next, holding his laptop, but there was a glint in his eyes. One Jungkook hadn't seen in over a decade. That spark that used to ignite every time they wrote together. That same energy that once led them to write 10 songs in a single summer and dream of winning daysangs long before either of them understood what the price of fame actually meant. The morning after their late-night Riverside session, Jungkook woke up with a scratchy throat, sore fingertips, and a voice memo on his phone titled, Haru Final Draft 3:14 a.m. He played it on loop. The recording was raw, imperfect, just him and Hyun harmonizing under the sound of city traffic and rustling leaves. But there was something sacred about it. Something untouched by producers' expectations or the weight of a billion ears. It was just them. And for the first time since debut, Jungkook didn't feel like an idol. He felt like a kid again. The one who wrote songs under a blanket with a flashlight, dreaming of days when he could tell the world how his heart sounded. At the big hit boardroom, the executives weren't nearly as poetic. "You want to release what?" one of the directors asked, adjusting his glasses. Jungkook stood tall. "A duet. With Hyun." Another exec frowned. "He's not signed to us. He's not even in the system. What's the marketing angle?" "There isn't one," Jungkook replied. "That's the point." Dead silence. Namjoon sat beside him, arms crossed like a proud older brother. "You all heard the demo. It's not about numbers. It's about storytelling." The head of PR cleared her throat. "Look, the public's already romanticizing this reunion. If we lean into it, frame it as an emotional comeback story." "We're not framing it," Jungkook cut in. "This isn't a concept. It's real." Another pause. A heavy one. Then Bang Si-hyuk himself, quiet until now, leaned forward and said, "All right, let's hear it live." Jungkook blinked. Now? Now. The lights in the company's private rehearsal studio dimmed. The entire executive board sat on fold-out chairs, sipping bottled water like they were judging a televised talent show. Hyun stood beside Jungkook, his fingers visibly shaking. "You okay?" Jungkook whispered. "No," Hyun said. "But you are." Jungkook nodded. "Then follow me." He counted them in with a soft tap on his leg. 1, 2, 3. And the music began. The room transformed. It wasn't just the lyrics, or the harmony. It was the way Jungkook's voice wrapped around Hyun's, cradling it like an old photograph. It was the subtle falter in Hyun's verse, and the way Jungkook stepped in, covering the crack like muscle memory. It was real, unscripted emotion leaking through melody. It was them. By the time the final note faded, no one spoke. Even the board members were blinking a little too much. Then Bang PD clapped once, slowly. "Release it."
No teaser. No countdown.
"Just drop it." Jungkook and Hyun looked at each other, stunned. Then they grinned. The track dropped at midnight.
No announcement.
No concept photos. Just a black square with 2 words. "Haru out now." Twitter exploded. Armies around the world went into a frenzy of decoding lyrics, piecing together past interviews, fan theories, childhood photos, obscure V-Live clips. And the reactions weren't just positive, they were feral. "I swear Jungkook's voice has never sounded this intimate. Who TF is Hyun, and how do I get their backstory turned into a K-drama?" I cried, laughed, screamed, and then looped it 43 times. Haru is a masterpiece. Within an hour, the song hit #1 in 32 countries. By morning, it had shattered streaming records. But none of that mattered to Jungkook. Because Hyun had texted him at 3:27 a.m. "Listening to us again. We finally did it." And Jungkook had replied, "I missed your voice. I missed your silence more." Meanwhile, across town, Jimin stood outside a cafe scrolling through TikToks about Haru. One in particular showed a fan sobbing into a plushie while mouthing along to Hyun's verse. He grinned and sent it to the group chat with the caption, "Y'all are internet boyfriends now. Congrats." Taehyung responded with a blurry selfie and the message, "Tell Hyun to marry you or I will." Hobie sent 10 clapping emojis and a link to a fan edit that had somehow already mixed the song with anime scenes and Studio Ghibli visuals. And Jeon, ever the chaos agent, replied with, "So when do we get the sequel song? Era Junior?" Jungkook ignored them all. Instead, he walked into the kitchen where Hyun stood barefoot, pouring cereal into a bowl too small for his appetite. "You forgot the milk," Jungkook said. Hyun looked down. "Crap. Disgraceful. I've been distracted." "By what?" Hyun looked at him deadpan. "Your stupid voice." Jungkook burst into laughter and smacked him with a spoon. Hyun retaliated with a sprinkle of cereal. A full-out kitchen war commenced, involving oat milk grenades and aggressive use of a spatula as a sword. Somewhere between ducking behind the fridge and laughing so hard his stomach ached, Jungkook realized something. He wasn't scared anymore. Not of the past. Not of what the world thought. Not even of losing this again. Because this time he knew how to fight for it. Not as an idol, but as Jungkook, the boy who once made a promise by the river. And this time, finally, was ready to keep it. You broke the internet, Namjoon said flatly, tossing his phone onto the studio couch. Again. Jungkook looked up from his laptop, where he was editing a behind-the-scenes vlog. That wasn't my fault. Namjoon raised an eyebrow. You dropped a surprise duet, disappeared from social media, and then reappeared holding hands with a man the fandom has labeled K-drama protagonist reincarnated. I think that's the definition of your fault. I wasn't holding his hand. There's literally a slow-motion gif with sparkles and background music. One of them added rose petals. Rose petals, Jungkook. Jungkook sank into his seat. It was windy. It's always windy when people are in love, Jimin said, striding in with a coffee in each hand. Science. Stop. Can't. He handed Jungkook a coffee. I ship it. You ship everything. You shipped me with my reflection once. That was a great match. And honestly, I think you two had chemistry. Jungkook groaned and buried his face in his hoodie. Why is everyone like this? Because we love you, Jimin said with a wink. And more importantly, because the fans love this. They're saying Haru is your most honest song yet. Some of them think it's the first time you've ever sung as yourself. Jungkook blinked. That hit harder than he expected. Because maybe it was true. Later that afternoon, Hyun walked into the studio, holding 2 bubble teas like an olive branch. Are they still making memes? Jungkook reached for one drink without looking. I am a meme now. Accept it. I saw the one where they photoshopped us into a wedding chapel and Jeon was officiating. Jungkook snorted. There's one where we're in a Disney movie. You're the misunderstood prince, and I'm the rabbit. Hyun raised an eyebrow. You're not the prince? I'm never the prince. They both laughed. Then the door opened again and Taehyung walked in wearing a suit, a fake priest collar, and holding a book labeled Vows, probably. I now pronounce you chaos and chaos. You may kiss the concept album. Hyun choked on his bubble tea. Jungkook threw a pillow at Taehyung's head. It was caught midair by Jeon, who appeared in the hallway holding an enormous cake shaped like a grand piano. It's called Haru Ever After, Jeon said with a proud smile. I had it custom made. You had a cake custom made within 12 hours? Do not question my network. Jungkook looked at Hyun, who whispered, Are all of your friends like this? This is them toned down. They spent the rest of the evening in the studio, laughing, singing, reminiscing, and, against all logic, recording a completely unserious track Taehyung titled Bubble Tea Confessions. The lyrics included lines like, I gave you my last tapioca pearl / that's how I know you rock my world. It was ridiculous. And perfect. Even Hyun, usually precise and serious with his syllables, was laughing too hard to finish the chorus. Jungkook couldn't remember the last time his chest felt this light.
No cameras.
No press. Just friends. Just music. Just peace. But peace never lasts long. Not when you're Jungkook. Not when your past refuses to stay in the dark. At 2:38 a.m., Jungkook's phone buzzed. Private message. From an unverified account. No display name. Just a single attachment. A photo. Blurry. Night vision. Taken through glass. It showed Jungkook asleep on the couch. Hyun next to him. Head resting on Jungkook's shoulder. They were alone. But someone else had been watching. There was no caption. Just a timestamp.
2:17 nachts.
Studio 6B. Jungkook's blood ran cold. Who had been there? How long had they been watching? He didn't realize he was trembling until his thumb hit the wrong button and the screen glitched. He took a deep breath and quietly walked into the hallway, out into the cold. Hyun followed moments later, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What's wrong? Jungkook turned the phone toward him. Hyun stared at the screen, the color draining from his face. They were inside the building, Jungkook whispered. That's not a paparazzi lens. That's someone who knows the space. Someone who's been close. Silence. Then Hyun muttered, "You think they're going to leak it?" "I don't know. But this..." Jungkook's voice cracked. "This is what I was afraid of." Hyun stepped closer. "You're not alone. I wasn't supposed to be a headline again. Not like this. Then let them write their stories." Hyun's voice was quiet but fierce. "We'll write our own." Jungkook looked at him, eyes glossy. "I don't want to lose you again." "You won't." Another buzz. This time a second message. "Tell the world the truth. Or we will." Jungkook's chest tightened. Because for all the joy, for all the laughter, something darker had begun to stir. And the next choice he made would echo far beyond a love song. The message haunted Jungkook all night. By morning, the text had been deleted.
No trace. No sender. No metadata.
Namjoon pulled every string he had, even looped in Big Hit's cybersecurity team. But the result was always the same. Whoever sent that photo knew exactly what they were doing. Jungkook sat in the conference room with his head in his hands, surrounded by his team, Hyun beside him. Tense but quiet, Namjoon paced. Jimin leaned against the window, arms crossed, his face unusually serious. "There are only a handful of people with keycard access to Studio 6B after midnight," Namjoon said. "Which means this wasn't a stalker or a fan. This was someone in here." Silence settled like dust. Hobie finally spoke. "So, what do we do?" Jungkook slowly looked up. His voice was steady, but there was fire in it. "We don't hide. If they want to drag my name through hell again, fine. But this time, I walk through it on my own terms." Hyun reached under the table and gently squeezed Jungkook's hand. Namjoon gave a slow nod. "Then we go public. Carefully. Not with a press release," Jimin added. "Let him speak." In his voice, Jungkook blinked. "You mean, an interview?" "No." Taehyung chimed in from the corner with a dramatic flourish, now wearing a velvet scarf for no reason. "You do a tiny desk concert." Everyone stared at him. "What?" Jungkook frowned. "You want me to come out and address a possible sabotage and emotional blackmail? In a tiny desk?" "Exactly," Taehyung said, completely serious. "It's raw. It's real. It's intimate. You sit down with your guitar. You sing haru. You talk. One camera. One take.
No edits.
Just you. And the truth." Namjoon blinked slowly. "He's not wrong." Jimin gasped. "Did Taehyung just have a valid idea?" Taehyung smirked. "I contain multitudes." That night, Jungkook stayed up rewriting his intro monologue 10 times. Hyun stayed beside him, offering edits, jokes, and snacks. None of which Jungkook accepted, but all of which he appreciated. "I'm not used to talking about myself like this," Jungkook said finally. "Not without a script. Not without armor." Hyun leaned against the table. "Then don't wear armor. Wear truth." Jungkook stared at him. Hyun added with a crooked smile. "Also maybe wear a shirt. Just in case." Jungkook laughed despite himself. The tiny desk team arrived the next afternoon. The set was small, cozy, bookshelves, low lighting, warm tones. It looked nothing like a stage, and that's why Jungkook chose it. He sat on a stool with a guitar in his lap, dressed in a plain white shirt and jeans, his hair slightly messy, no makeup, no glamour, just him. The camera rolled. He looked straight into the lens, and began.
I'm Jungkook.
You probably know that already. What you might not know is that, for most of my life, I've let other people tell my story. Through interviews, headlines, theories, fan edits. They all painted versions of me. Some were beautiful. Some were brutal. But this is the part of the story I want to tell myself. He took a deep breath. When I was a kid, I had a best friend. His name was Hyun. He knew me before the stages, before the cameras, before I became Jungkook. We wrote songs in notebooks. We dreamed about singing together. Then life got big, and I got scared. I thought if I brought the past with me, I'd be weak. So I left it behind. But somehow it found me again. And instead of running this time, I listened. He looked up. Hyun sat quietly in the shadows, just out of frame. The song you're about to hear isn't just a collaboration. It's a promise. One I made a long time ago. One I intend to keep. He adjusted the mic, picked up the guitar, and played haru.by. The time the video ended, the comment section was a battlefield of emotions. This made me sob in public, and now I'm banned from Starbucks. I don't even care who Hyun is anymore. I just hope they're happy and safe and making pancakes together. This is more raw than anything I've heard in years. Jungkook isn't just an idol, he's a storyteller. Within 6 hours, the Tiny Desk performance became the most viewed in the series' history. But the biggest surprise came not from the fans, but from the sender of the original threat. At 3:03 a.m., another message arrived. So you made your choice. Brave. But not smart. Attached was a single video clip. CCTV footage. Hyun, alone, in a hallway, entering Jungkook's studio, holding a second keycard.
Timecode 2:13 Uhr nachts.
For minutes before the photo was taken. The caption, "Did you really think you could trust him?" Jungkook's hands went numb. The screen blurred, and the silence in the room screamed louder than any betrayal he'd ever known. Quarto. The moment the clip ended, Jungkook stared at his phone like it had grown fangs. Hyun, alone.
2:13 Uhr nachts.
Studio 6B. For minutes before the photo was taken, the numbers blinked in his head like sirens. His breath grew uneven. His fingers trembled. It didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. The room felt smaller. His chest, tighter. His thoughts, louder. He stood slowly, the phone still in his hand, and turned to where Hyun had been just moments earlier. On the couch, strumming his guitar, humming a half-formed melody. But now the couch was empty. Hyun! Jungkook called out. No answer. He checked the bathroom, the kitchen, the hallway. By the time Jimin, Namjoon, and Taehyung arrived, Jungkook was pacing the living room, the lights off, the phone replaying the video on loop. He was here, Jungkook said, his voice low and flat. He left without saying anything. Namjoon leaned in, frowning. You're sure this footage is real? I don't know what's real anymore. Taehyung grabbed the phone and stared at the clip, his jaw tightening. Why would Hyun have a second keycard? Jimin walked over and crouched in front of Jungkook. Hey, look at me. Just because he was there doesn't mean he did anything. It doesn't mean he betrayed you. But he didn't tell me, Jungkook whispered, almost to himself. He let me believe we were safe. That it was just us. Namjoon nodded. And maybe he still thought it was. Maybe there's another explanation. We find him. We ask him. But we don't jump to conclusions. Jungkook looked at them one by one. His brothers, his family, and saw the worry in their eyes. Not judgment. Not suspicion. Just fear that this might break him again. I need to find him, Jungkook said, standing abruptly. I need to hear it from him. The studio was dark when Jungkook arrived. Security had already shut down most of the floors. But he knew the side entrance. The one they used during training days when they snuck in after hours to practice without permission. He walked the halls like a ghost, every step echoing memories. He half expected Hyun to be in Studio 6B, guitar in hand, scribbling in a notebook like nothing had happened. But the room was empty, until, click, the door creaked behind him. Jungkook turned. Hyun stood there, breathless. A backpack slung over one shoulder and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in days. Where were you? Jungkook asked. Hyun didn't answer. Why did you leave? Still nothing. Then Jungkook held up the phone, the screen frozen on the frame. Hyun, alone, entering the studio. Why didn't you tell me you were here that night? Hyun's jaw clenched. Was it you? Jungkook's voice cracked. Was it you who took the photo? No, Hyun said too quickly. I swear. Then why were you there? Hyun took a step forward. Because I got a message. Just like you did. Jungkook blinked. What? Hyun fumbled in his backpack, pulled out an old phone, cracked and taped. I didn't want anyone tracking it. he said, handing it over. Check the messages. Jungkook scrolled. There it was. A message timestamped an hour before the photo was taken. Come to 6B. Alone. He's not who you think he is. And beneath it, a video, Jungkook, leaving the studio the day before, followed by a blurred silhouette that looked very much like Hyun. Except Jungkook knew it wasn't. I thought you were being stalked, Hyun said quietly. I thought someone was trying to get to you through me. I came to check the room. To make sure you weren't in danger. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to scare you. I didn't want you to think. Hyun swallowed. That being near me was making things worse. Jungkook took a step back. His emotions were a storm. Confusion, relief, anger, shame, love. And the second keycard? I didn't steal it. I was given it. By someone on your team. Jungkook's head snapped up. Who? Hyun shook his head. I don't know. They never showed their face. But they left it in a locker with my name on it. They wanted me to find it. Jungkook looked down at the messages again. The puzzle pieces were snapping into place, but the picture wasn't clear yet. Someone's playing us, he whispered. Hyun nodded. And they're using the one thing we both forgot to protect. Jungkook looked up. Our story. The next day, the fandom was on fire. A new account had emerged. No name, no face, just a single pinned tweet. Everyone loves a fairy tale, but fairy tales are built on silence. Let me show you what the silence hides. Below it, a countdown. 24 hours. Everyone assumed it was another fan theory drop. But Jungkook knew better. He recognized the language, the timing, the malice. Whoever this was, they weren't after fame. They were after ruin. And the only way to stop them was to tell the whole truth. Even the parts he'd buried. Even the parts that hurt. Quarto. It was 23 hours and 14 minutes until the countdown ended. The world was watching. Jungkook stood in his apartment, the blinds drawn tight against the chaos. On his phone, he could see the speculation growing by the second. Is someone blackmailing Jungkook? The Haru romance was all fake. Was it PR? Who is Hyun really? Big hit in damage control? Silence speaks volumes. His name wasn't just trending. It was erupting. Taehyung had already threatened to hijack the leak with a fake confession video about having Jungkook's child. Jimin was 2 seconds away from doxing the anonymous account himself with an army of Twitter sleuths. Namjoon had asked legal to track every trace of the server behind the countdown. But none of it mattered, not really. Because this wasn't about hiding anymore. This was about owning. And Jungkook was done hiding behind silence. He picked up his phone, stared at the screen, then finally hit record. He didn't rehearse. He didn't edit. He just spoke. It's Jungkook. You've seen a lot these past few weeks. Some of it was true. Some of it wasn't. Some of it was twisted to hurt not just me, but someone I care about deeply. So let me tell you the truth, not as a headline, not as a performance. Just as me. The video was 10 minutes long, and it shook the internet like thunder on a quiet lake. He talked about meeting Hyun, about writing their first song together in a dusty bedroom, lit only by the glow of a cracked laptop screen and leftover ramen steam. About the promise by the river. About the pain of losing that friendship to the machinery of fame. About how he buried that version of himself, too soft, too honest, too human. He admitted he was scared. Not of fans. Not of love. But of being seen. Then softly he added, I loved him. Maybe I still do. Not just romantically. Not just nostalgically. But in a way that made me want to sing again. That made the world feel right again. And if that truth destroys me, then maybe that's a version of me that needed to go anyway. The video ended with a still frame of him and Hyun at the river.
No filters.
No effects. Just two boys, 20 years older than when it all began, smiling like the world hadn't touched them yet. And then, he dropped the final track. One last song. The one they wrote the night of the betrayal. Haru PT2. The Unquiet. It wasn't polished. The production was minimal. Just vocals, a trembling piano, and a broken guitar string they'd refused to fix because it made the chord sound more real. But it hit hard. Every lyric was raw with confession. Lines like, "You watched me turn to stone so I'd survive / but you remembered the boy who could cry. Even if they strip my name, take my voice / you're the echo I would still choose twice." It hit #1 globally in less than an hour. But for Jungkook, that wasn't the victory. The victory was the silence that followed. Because for the first time in years, it wasn't loud. There were no fake apologies. No press statements. Just fans. Listening. Not demanding. Not judging. Just feeling. Meanwhile, halfway across town, the anonymous account behind the countdown posted a final message. "I wanted to burn him. Instead, he burned brighter." Then it vanished.
No trace. No leaks.
Nothing. Because when truth walks into the room, shadows disappear. Back at the studio, Jungkook found Hyun sitting on the floor, surrounded by crumpled paper, a half-eaten sandwich, and 3 empty energy drink cans. "Do you think it's over?" Hyun asked. Jungkook sat beside him. "No," he said, "but I think it's finally beginning." Hyun chuckled. "So, what now?" Jungkook shrugged. "Now we write something new. Not for them. Not for headlines. Just for us." Hyun leaned his head on Jungkook's shoulder. "Deal. But next time, can we write a song that doesn't emotionally destroy me?"
No promises.
They sat in silence, the studio warm with golden light. Outside, fans were still singing Haru on sidewalks. Inside, the two boys who once swore under a flickering street lamp to never forget each other, finally kept their promise. And the world, for once, didn't demand more. It just listened, and let them breathe. In the hush after chaos, when the spotlight dims and the noise fades, some stories don't need a sequel. They just need to be heard and remembered. Jungkook and Hyun's melody didn't end with fame. It began with honesty. It survived betrayal. And in the end, it was love, in its rawest, realest, and most resonant form. Thank you for listening.